U.S. 7th Fleet and USS Milius sail again near the China Naval Base in the Paracel Islands. The U.S. 7th Fleet confirmed the Arleigh Burke-class guided missile destroyer USS Milius conducted a freedom of navigation operation (FLNOP) near the Paracel Islands on March 24 before continuing on in the South China Sea. This FLNOP upheld the rights, freedoms, and lawful uses of the sea recognized in international law by challenging the restrictions on innocent passage imposed by the People's Republic of China, PRC, Taiwan, and Vietnam, the 7th Fleet said in a statement. The maneuver also challenged the PRC's claim to straight baselines enclosing the Paracel Islands. It added, "The 7th Fleet maintained that illegal maritime activities in the South China Sea pose a serious threat to the freedom of the seas, including the freedoms of navigation and overflight, free trade and unimpeded commerce, and freedom of economic opportunity for South China Sea littoral nations." The U.S. safeguards freedom of navigation for all nations, and as long as certain countries continue to make unlawful territorial claims, it will continue to defend the rights and freedoms of the sea, the 7th Fleet said. China Defense Minister spokesperson Tan Kefei blasted the operation and accused the U.S. Navy of undermining peace and stability in the South China Sea. "We sternly demand the U.S. side to immediately stop such provocative behaviors. Otherwise, it would take the serious consequences of every eventuality it caused," he said. The U.S. Milius carried out flight operations with an Aerosonde unmanned aerial system in the South China Sea. The U.S. has regularly sent Navy ships to the South China Sea and Taiwan Strait amid increasing Chinese military activity in the region. They should also be cautious about military exercises conducted by the U.S. and its allies in the region. There were about 1,000 sorties by large U.S. reconnaissance aircraft in the South China Sea region last year, according to a report by the South China Sea Strategic Situation Probing Initiative. The think tank also tracked 8 entries by U.S. aircraft carrier strike groups and amphibious alert groups in 2022, and at least 12 by nuclear-powered attack submarines. U.S. destroyers recently entered the territory of the Paracel Islands twice within 2 days, setting a new historical record. Wu said, "The number of U.S. military bases in the region had increased to 9 and clearly targeted not only the South China Sea, but also the Taiwan Strait," he added. Wu said Washington and its allies had a clear intention of countering Beijing. He warned that coastal countries of the South China Sea should think twice about providing military bases to countries outside the region. Last month, Washington and Manila announced a deal to give U.S. troops access to another 4 bases in the Philippines, and Australia is hoping to acquire 3, possibly 5, nuclear-powered submarines by the early 2030s under the U.S.-led AUKUS Pact, which aims to counter China in the Asia-Pacific region. Beijing's claim to much of the South China Sea was dismissed in 2016 by an international tribunal. The landmark ruling in the case, brought by the Philippines, was rejected by the Chinese leadership, but endorsed by the U.S. During Thursday's panel discussions, former Philippine President Gloria Arroyo said the ruling was an important contribution by the Philippines to regional and global rule-based order, but added that her country has faced difficulties in setting policies against the background of China-U.S. rivalry. Drawing on the historical lessons of the 1962 Cuban Missile Crisis, Arroyo said a solution could be found, but also warned that war could erupt if the involved parties kept a zero-sum game mentality. David Lampton, professor emeritus and director of China Studies at Johns Hopkins University, said the situation in the contentious waterway had become more difficult to manage. The increasing military resources and equipment deployed in the region by both China and the U.S. could lead to accidents, he said. There were at least 2 encounters towards the end of last year. In December, the U.S. military said one of its planes was forced to take evasive maneuvers to avoid collision when a Chinese fighter jet flew within meters of the aircraft in the South China Sea. In another incident a month earlier, China said it had warned off a U.S. warship that entered the waterway near the Spratly Islands. Chinese officials on the panel accused the U.S. of destabilizing the security of the South China Sea and called on countries in the region to cooperate and reject external involvement. Tan Qingsheng, from the Chinese Foreign Ministry's Ocean Affairs Department, said some major countries outside the region continue to increase military deployments in the region, deliberately expanding conflicts and trying to mess up the South China Sea.